So yes, as Arta City was saying, these talks about generosity have extended and extended. And, I totally agree that when you start to think about generosity, it's just sort of, it's got this endless sort of momentum. Just the power of generosity. And I thought I'd just start with some words of the Buddha that are said to be some things that the Buddha said about generosity. And it's, if you knew what I know about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. Now, there's something about that saying, those words that I find incredibly powerful. That if you knew what he knew about the power of giving, you'd not let a single meal pass without sharing it. And I think it just conveys something about this, the tremendous potential of generosity, of giving, of dana, to transform, to really transform us very positively. And of course, generosity is one of the 6 paramitas, or the perfections, or the qualities of the Buddha. And so the Buddha would have been so utterly, just naturally generous. It would just be an expression of the Buddha's being. And for us, it's more of a practice. But by doing that practice, we're of course following in the footsteps of the Buddha. And we're moving ourselves, sort of training ourselves in generosity. And over time, that the practice of generosity can take on its own momentum and become much more natural, much more spontaneous. It's got this incredible power. And I know you've probably heard that in the talks of the previous weeks, but I thought it's just really worth sort of thinking about that. And Sangha, who started, this whole movement off, I think that's an incredible act of generosity. He talks somewhere about there should be a constant sharing of gifts in the Sangha, this constant sort of sharing of gifts. That there should be this sort of atmosphere of generosity. And I think that happens so much. I think of how many people are always sending cards and gifts and things like that. And the effect of that, on the Sangha. I can remember my Mitra ceremony. I'm sort of going off track a bit here, but I think back to my Mitra ceremony when I became a Mitra, or a friend to the Sangha, back in 2001. And I remember coming over to Cambridge Buddhist Centre, because I used to go along to the Peterborough group, a tiny little group that used to meet every Tuesday in the library that was led by Sangha Ketu. But to become a Mitra, I needed to come to Cambridge. And I came across for my ceremony, the ritual to mark it. And I was just given all of these gifts and cards, by people in the Sangha I'd never even met. I was sort of blown away by it. I didn't, I just couldn't quite believe it. I thought, what's happening here? What's going on? This sort of incredible generosity. And on that note, I can remember also, so I've come from obviously starting to practice the Dharma and then having my Mitra ceremony in 2001. I would never imagined at any point in that time that one day I'd be working at the Buddhist Centre at Cambridge on the team, that I'd be supporting women and supporting people to practice Dharma. I could never have imagined that at the time, but I feel I've sort of come a bit sort of full circle or something, because I went off on a bit of a journey in between and then came back. I've come back to Cambridge, but yeah, there was something about that generosity that blew me away. And I think that's happened for me time and time again. Through the years of my practice, that I've been on the receipt of so much generosity, and something sort of happens in the process, I think, with the practice, you know, the practices you do, the receipt of generosity, the receipt of so much kindness, that somehow the generosity does start to come out of yourself towards others. This becomes this expression, you know, it's, you start to be more generous or something, or I felt I started to be more generous. And it's like that generosity can take on a life of its own. And I've still got a way to go, you know, I'm clearly not a Buddha, you know, and I'm still really practicing, but there's something about this flow of generosity that is incredibly powerful. Yeah. So my talk actually, this talk, as Arta City said, is about building a team culture of giving. And, you know, I thought about it, you know, building a team culture of giving. And I thought, well, we're all part of the team. You know, there's teams within teams, within teams, within teams, but the whole Sangha is like a team. We're all participating. And I hope that'll come out, you know, through this talk. But I started off sort of asking the question, why is it important? Why is it important to build a team culture of giving? And I thought to answer that, I needed to think about, well, what are we fundamentally trying to do in the Sangha? You know, what are we fundamentally trying to build, you know? Because it's not about giving as an end in itself, you know, although generosity is a wonderful thing. As Buddhists, we're always trying to move ourselves in the direction of awakening, of enlightenment. So we're all trying to do that. We're trying to go beyond our conditioned selves, freeing up our those conditionings that hold us back and inhibited us and cause us dukkha, you know, cause us unsatisfactoriness and suffering, and move much more towards freedom, you know, to being free of those conditioning factors, to becoming less conditioned, if you like. And we're doing that as a Sangha because it's an incredibly difficult thing to do on your own. You know, the Buddha was an extraordinarily exceptional being who was able to go forth and actually attain enlightenment, go beyond anybody else anywhere. You know, there were no teachers who had, you know, at that point who were enlightened. And he had that capacity, you know, to be able to do that. But most people need teachers and they need a Sangha. You know, I certainly need a Sangha. I think if we thought about, you know, tonight we're all here, what would it be like if we didn't have this? You know, many of us would have gone along to the Buddhist Centre before we had Zoom. You know, we came onto Zoom because of COVID-19. You know, but what would it be like? You know, yet you might read a book, you might be practicing alone. So the Sangha is of such significance. And I thought what we're trying to do as a Sangha is we're trying to build a Buddha land. And, you know, what is a Buddha land? So Buddha land is somewhere where, you know, our material needs are met, and we're all practicing. The Dharma is accessible to us. We can hear the Dharma, we can practice it, we can talk with each other about the Dharma. Everything is about spiritual growth and transformation and freedom. So we're trying to create Buddha lands, you know, and that is what we're trying to do. And we could think of a Buddha land like a context, you know. I was thinking it's a bit like a context for practice, you know, and what context do we need to practice? How can we come together? So we need things like the CBC, you know, you need Buddhist centres, and there's all these different contexts for practices, retreat centres, there's so much. So we need those situations. And we need to come together and create these situations. So I was thinking right back, if we go right back to the days of the Buddha, so the Buddha becomes an enlightened being, and then he has his disciples, and then a Sangha forms around him, and they have rainy season retreats, and then they all go off and they're all teaching the Dharma. You know, there's all this sort of going on. They've got this sort of context of practicing together. And I was thinking about how sometimes, you know, like the Buddha would be given a mango grove to practice in. You know, there's this place where you can go and you can learn, you know, you can hear the Dharma. And so people could go and listen to the Buddha. And so the Buddha would be teaching, but all of the people around him would be supporting that context. So he'd go out on alms rounds for food, or he'd be brought food from the people to support him, and he'd be teaching. So everybody's sort of contributing. And more people are having access to the Dharma. You know, as more and more people hear the Dharma teaching. And I was thinking about Sangha, who started this movement. So, you know, he was in India for like 20 years or something, you know, and he really went forth. He went forth with a friend, you know, but he searched and searched for teachers, and he searched and searched for Sangha. If you want to find out about him, you can read the Triratna story, which is like, it's such an excellent book, and it's a warts and all account of, you know, Triratna coming to where it is now, you know, and what you get a sense of, how did this get to here? How did we get to be that there's the Buddhist centre at Cambridge, but there's so many other Buddhist centres, there's so many groups, there's places all over the world. Because in 1967, Sangha, or Bante as some of us call him, like our teacher, he would have been in Monmouth Street in this little basement teaching a handful of people to meditate. And some of those got ordained, and they started to work together to build structures, to put into place communities, somewhere where people can come and practice. They started to operate like teams. And all of that has gone through all of these years and brought this is where we are now, you know, this is what has brought this to us now, you know, being here on Zoom today. Yeah, so we need a context within which to practice, and yeah, this a sense of generosity. So generosity is so important. It's Subhuti talks about it. He says somewhere that an atmosphere of generosity is a bit like a magnet to iron filings or something, you know, that it attracts people, because generosity is so infectious. It opens our hearts, doesn't it? I'm just sort of thinking it's infectious. It's irresistible or something. You know, when we're in our groups, we can think a bit about what it's like to be in receipt of generosity. You know, I'll give us some questions to think about. But if we think about generosity, you know, the effect it has on us as individuals, it can be extraordinary, can't it? You know, it's like if you're given a gift, you know, like I said, you know, I was given these gifts on my Mitra ceremony, and I just couldn't believe it, you know, I'm just sort of blown away. But it makes me want to be more generous. And sometimes now people have been so generous to me of late, you know, I've sometimes thought, I can't believe they're being so generous. I don't feel generous enough, you know, I want to give more. And in that way, you know, in the Sangha, you start to build up this sort of practice of generosity, with some people who have practiced it for a long, long time, just becoming more and more naturally and organically generous, that you're starting to sort of build something up. You know, it's one of these paramitas, isn't it? It's a practice of moving towards enlightenment, and so we build up our individual momentum and we build up a collective momentum. So I hope that sort of makes sense. And I think all of these, all of these institutions or contexts for practice, or Buddha lands, however we want to think of them, they all need people to get to support them. And I've just written down a few of the contexts we've got for practice, because I thought this was extraordinary. This has all come about through people just really getting together and giving their time and their energy, giving money, turning up at an event. All of this is part of really, really creating Sangha. So we've got Cambridge Buddhist Centre, and I thought about all the groups that are around the area. We've got Hertford, Milton Keynes, Peterborough, Kings Lynn, Letchworth, and there's all of those groups. You've got people in there who've decided to lead them or support them and turn up for them, and they're all getting momentum. We've got Buddhist centres all over the place, obviously got Cambridge, got London, Brighton, Birmingham, Manchester, Norwich. It's all over the place, all these. And retreat centres, we've got Taraloka, Rivendell, Vajraloka, Vajrasana, Dharna Kosha. I just find it extraordinary. And when people start training for ordination, we've got Padmaloka, we've got Tiratmaloka for the women. And then you've got ordination retreat centres. We've got Akashavana in Spain for the women, and we've got Gihiloka in Spain for the men. We've got Adhisthana. And all of those places had to be found. First of all, you have to find the place and think, oh, it's got potential as a retreat centre or a Buddhist centre or whatever. Then you have to raise the money to get it. Then you have to have a team to run it. Then you need a Sangha to support it. And, I just think it's extraordinary. It's only me thinking about it. Obviously I know all of these places exist, but just thinking about what's brought them all into being, is quite extraordinary. So, like the team at the Buddhist Centre. So we're at the Buddhist Centre, as Artisiddhi said, and we're there because we really, really, we're committed to the Dharma. We love it, and we want to share it, and we're on support. Some of us, we're on a support package, so we live on a support package, and the Sangha are giving that. It's we're trying to create the conditions for people to come together. Sangha are bringing, supporting in all sorts of ways, by being on teams or by practicing themselves, by meditating at home, deepening your practice. There's endless ways to help, really, really build this team culture of giving. It's going on. It's already happening. And without us all coming together in those sorts of ways, it just wouldn't work, but there's so much potential in it. And of course we want the Sangha to grow. We're all benefiting from the Sangha in some way. I know some of you are very, very new, so you've only just got a taste of it, but some of us will feel a deep, deep benefit from this, being part of the Sangha. And we want to share that benefit. We want to share that benefit with other beings. And we can see that we can create a sort of world or a Buddha land where kindness is key. Generosity is a major factor in it. And we create a sort of possibility of living a different life and living we can sort of give an example for the world, if you like. And this isn't in a sort of big way, it's just to say that, well, kindness and generosity can have a massive effect. So there's so many ways of giving, and I'm sure that's been explored over the last weeks. You know, we can give in so many extraordinary ways. But I think just really sort of taking on how significant, you know, the power of being generous, and that if we practice and practice and practice and practice, it will become a natural state of being, and then it has even more power, you know, and potential. Okay, so hopefully that's given us a bit of a sense. It's quite hard when you're giving a talk to know, you know, how, you know, what people are thinking or anything like that, but we've got an opportunity now to go into groups. I know that Adele's going to try and put those of you who are on the course together in some sort of formation with the team, so that Adele's really going to try that. So Adele's hosting for us. Do you want to wave, Adele? So Adele's looking after that side of things. And so I've got some questions for us to explore, if I can find them. I've got an absolute mass of papers here. Yeah, so if we want to explore, you know, when we've received a gift, or when we're receiving something, when somebody's being generous towards us, what is it like? And try and tease that out a bit, you know, what sort of effect it has, you know, to be on the receiving end, and then also, what is it like to be giving? You know, what effect does that have? And the other thing you might explore is, do you feel, you know, that you've benefited, you know, from the Sangha? You know, do you feel you've benefited from the Sangha? If so, how? You know, and if you can imagine your part in it, you know, just you're co-creating this team, if you like. So you're also giving something to it. So maybe you can think of, what are you giving to it? It could just be you've turned up. And that is so powerful. That has a big effect on everyone. Okay, so we'll have groups for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together.